everyone to the 5-day international virtual workshop on research skills, jointly organized by International Research Academy of Science and Art, Serbia, and Cape Comorin Trust, India. Today we are in the 5th day of the International Virtual Workshop. It is my immense pleasure to welcome our Ambassador and Professor Dr. Esther Mala. She is the Country Director of IPRH Malaysia, International Inspirational Speaker Award winner, Certified Gold Trainer, Global Trainer, International Soft Skill Trainer, International Toastmaster, Educanist, Golden Award winner of 2022, Leadership Award of 2022, Parenting Coach, Child and Youth Development Coach, Mentor at Oriental University, Indo, International Peace Ambassador, Accountant UK and IT Engineer UK, Educational Ambassador for International Internship University, Country Director of IPRH Malaysia, latest award winner in 2023. She is the Best Global Educator Award of 2023. She is the recipient of Worldwide Leadership Gold Award winner 2023. Most Influential and Iconic Leader of 2023, International Inspirational Speaker Award winner of 2023, Global Legend and Peace Award winner of 2023, which was issued by Delhi. It's an immense pleasure to welcome once again you, ma'am. The platform is yours.
Thank you, the admin. Okay, congratulations, welcome, namaste, and a happy weekend, dear all honorable, respected guest speakers, participants. Welcome, Dr. Meghna Anissa. Welcome, Professor Ivy Sarah May to our workshop. Dear participants, guests, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Professor Ivy Sarah. Professor Ivy Sarah May B. Arimong, RSW DPA, is presently Associate Professor at the Mindanao State University, Marawi City, Philippines. She obtained her Master of Public Administration and Doctor in Public Administration in the same institution. Her field of expertise include teaching project management, technical needs assessment, gender and development, computer literacy, counseling, facilitating documentation, case study writing, and community organizing. She is currently serving as a Special Assistant to the Office of the Vice President for Academic Affairs, OVPAA, and works on student scholarship, curriculum, and faculty promotions. As a registered social worker, she has worked in various regions of Mindanao for the Department of Social Welfare Development as a field practitioner for almost a decade before she has joined the academy. Welcome, Professor Ivy Sarah. It's a great pleasure having you here today.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am, for that wonderful introduction. May I now start presenting my, Okay. So I hope you bear with me as my internet connection is a bit unstable.
It's all right. It's all right.
Can you now see my?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Can you now see my presentation?
No, we are seeing another smaller screen here. Can you please share again? Oh my God.
So you still cannot see?
I cannot see your screen, but there's another smaller screen like us now.
Right.
Or maybe you can pass to the admin to share for you if you could.
Yes, can I? Yeah, okay. Can I
Send to
just send to the admin? All right,
Yeah,
in a moment.
From admin side, we have shared our mail ID. Kindly send the PPT in the mail ID. We will share.
Where is it? Where is it? Where do you want her to send, please?
It is in
send
the chat box.
Chat box.
Yeah, I will send now. CI Joe Christopher 2831 at gmail.com. Is this CI Joe? All right. In a moment. I think I'm having a problem. Okay.
Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah, thank you. My apologies. All right, in a moment.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Please relax. Take your time because it happens.
All right. Yeah, all right. Can I just may I humbly request the admin to please just present? May he present my presentation? If he
What
Yeah,
is
can.
We,
Yeah, I
we
have
have,
already sent him.
yes, ma'am. We have received your mail. Within 2 minutes, we will share.
just few minutes. Yeah, he will share. The
Okay.
admin will
All
share.
right. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
because Professor, this is 1 hour session. Without any slides, it's going to be very boring for the participants. Although
Yes,
it can be
exactly.
interesting, but the focusing, the span is too short nowadays, and we rather see visual as well as hear.
All right. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for
yeah, we
understanding.
love to see your presentation.
Yes. Because the weather is not so good in here right now. That's why the internet connection is not so good as well. I apologize for the technical difficulty.
It's okay. Please don't mention it.
All right. Thank you for understanding.
Yeah, it's coming in. It's coming
Okay.
in. Fantastic. Yeah.
All right.
Well done.
Okay. Thank you
Well
very
done.
much.
Yes.
All right. Now, assalamualaikum and good evening to all. I hope you will accept my greetings of peace and good evening to all. I am tasked to discuss and to lecture about research writing. Also, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. Anyway, on research writing, we all know that writing is an important part of research. Getting a project started usually means taking it from ideas to a written proposal. At the other end, a project is not complete until it is shared and through writing. So, thus, a written proposal is required for the project to commence, and a written report is required after the project. So, it follows that the quality of research is judged in part, that the quality of research is judged in part by the quality of the written document. So, may it either be in a form of proposal or report. Now, there are ways we know things through sources of knowledge or truth or valid knowledge. These are through our own personal experiences, through authority of others, through customs and traditions, as well as scientific inquiry and also about research. Next slide, please. Now, what is research? Okay, next slide, please. All right. According to Mukherjee, on the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary defines research as studious inquiry or examination, especially investigation or experimentation aimed at the discovery and interpretation of facts, revision of accepted theories or laws in the light of new facts, or practical application of such new and revised theories of laws. Next slide, please. The definition accepted by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or otherwise known as OECD, runs as any creative systematic activity undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge, including knowledge of man, culture, and society, and the use of this knowledge to devise new applications. Next slide, please. The word research is derived from the French word rechercher, which means to go about seeking. Thus, seeking knowledge is at the root of research. Next slide, please. All right. So research is search for new knowledge or for new applications of existing knowledge, or for both. Now, when we say search for an answer to a question or a solution to a problem, we mean simply defined as a search of knowledge, original contribution to the existing knowledge. This is our way to gather evidence for your practice and is based on a scientific method. So when we say search for an answer to a question or solution to a problem, we are considering the questions such as what are my clients or respondents' most presenting problems? Another, what are their most common underlying problems? What is the socio-economic background of my clients? Why am I successful in certain cases and not in others? And what resources are available in the community to help a client with a particular need? Or what intervention strategies are appropriate for this problem? And also, how satisfied are my clients with my services? And also, what causes X, or what are the effects of Y? Those are the questions we need to consider. Next slide, please. All right, on research objectives. Objectives of any research includes creating or developing or building up some new concepts or methods or properties or features or products like software and the like, or a combination of some or all of this. Generalizing some existing models or methods or techniques to widen their applicability. Next slide, please. Another objectives of any research includes extending to a wider or more general setups. For example, extending some probability distribution from univariate to multivariate situations, extending a method of inferencing from the classic independently and identically distributed observations to dependent processes and the like. Another is modifying some existing models or methods or results to remove certain constraints to take them into account explicitly. Next slide, please, on research processes. All right. So this includes concrete formulation of the research problem, indicating the process and or the resulting phenomena to be studied along with their aspects and concerns as noted in the problem. Before anything else, we need to know what motivates us to do research. We have various reasons why we are motivated of research. So one is probably our desire to get a degree as well as promotion. Am I correct? Another is our desire to probably face challenges in solving the unsolved problems. Our desire to get intellectual joy of doing some creative work. and our desire to be of service to society. And for some, maybe it means, or our may mean a source of our living. Now, going back on broad steps in research, on review of relevant literature in the problem area identified by the research worker and available experiences, if any. The literature, the proposal needs to be clear on the position taken with respect to the literature in the proposed study. So there are these main possibilities to include in relation to the literature. So the literature is reviewed comprehensively in advance of the study. And this review is included as part of the proposal. The literature will be reviewed comprehensively ahead of the empirical stage of the research. But this review will not done with the proposal until the proposal is approved. So in this case, the nature and the scope of the literature to be reviewed and familiarity with it should be indicated. The literature will deliberately not be reviewed prior to the empirical work, but will be integrated into the research during the study, as in grounded theory research. So in this case too, the nature and scope of the literature should be indicated. For some qualitative proposals, the literature may be used in sharpening the focus of the study and to give structure to its questions and design. So if so, this should be indicated along with how it is to be done. In all cases, the researcher needs to connect the proposed study to the literature. Next slide, please. All right. Formulation of the expected outcomes or the working hypothesis in terms of removal of concerns about the problem or of limitations in earlier investigations and results thereof. On research design, which provides the essential framework for research and guides all subsequent steps to achieve the research objectives, as are reflected in the problem formulation and the working hypothesis. So in all proposals, whether quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods, it is a good idea to start this section with a short, clear paragraph describing the strategy the research will use for answering the research questions. In qualitative studies, the location of the study along the structure continuum is particularly important for its strategy and design. Qualitative design, such as case studies, may it be single or multiple or cross-sectional or longitudinal, ethnography or grounded theory may overlap, and elements of these strategies may be used separately or together. So this is not a problem, but it should be made clear that the proposed study uses elements of different strategies. Qualitative studies vary greatly on the issue of pre-developed conceptual frameworks, and the position of the proposed study on this matter should be indicated. A fully or partly pre-developed framework should be shown. Where one will be developed, it needs to be indicated how this will be done. So this will interact with data collection and analysis and may be better dealt with there. Mixed method studies should identify, describe, and justify which mixed methods design is proposed. All right, next slide, please. All right. On collection of evidences in terms of primary and or secondary data, throwing light on the research and of all supporting information, methods, tools, and results in the case of theoretical research. Now, the two matters have here are the instruments, if any, for example, that will be used for data collection, and the procedures for administering the instruments. So if a quantitative study proposes to use instruments that already exist and information about their psychometric characteristics is available, it should be included also. So if the instruments are to be developed, the general steps for developing them should be shown also. If qualitative study proposes to use instruments, for example, observation schedules or structured or semi-structured interviews, so the same comments may apply. Less structured qualitative data collection techniques should be indicated and discussed, especially in terms of the quality of data issues. For quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method studies, the procedures proposed for data collection should also be described, and the description should show why these data collection activities here been chosen. So possible threats to the validity of data and strategies to minimize or control these threats can also be indicated here, on analysis of evidences through use of logical reasoning, augmented by methods and techniques, both qualitative, to come up with a solution to the problem. So a mixed methods proposal needs to cover both types of analysis. If applicable, all types of proposals should indicate what computer use is planned in the analysis of the data. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, on phases in research. So we have phases in research. We have the conceptual, the philosophical, the implementation, and evaluation. Next slide, please. All right. On conceptual, the research, the single phenomenon, or the group of phenomena with possible interrelationships to be studied, the research topic and the specific research questions. Also to be stated here is what knowledge about which aspect of the underlying phenomenon or phenomena is likely to be achieved. Next slide. Okay, the research discipline, to indicate the discipline or disciplines from which concepts, methods, and techniques will be used and to which some knowledge augmentation is expected to take place. And next slide, please. The researcher are taking account of the knowledge and skills of the researcher and the researcher's theoretical lens, reflecting the ability of the researcher to develop a preliminary or working hypothesis, which can lead to the formulation of new theories or modification or augmentation upon verification of existing theories. Next slide, please. Okay, so to the positivist researcher, we have this positivist. Processes of data collection, analysis, and interpretation should not recognize the role of the researcher. On the other hand, the researcher is part of the world being studied, and thus the researcher's own influencing point of view is inevitable to the critical and interpretivist approaches. So we have approaches in social research. We have mentioned about the positivism. What does this positivism know? This is to establish the scientific laws of society. These are the causal relationship which are arrived by testing hypotheses as in science. And we have mentioned about the interpretivism. So that is to build on understanding of motives and intentions that underpin social behavior. We also have what we call the critical social research, which is to ask critical questions with a view to changing society or to transform an equal power relationship. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, on implementation. Here we have to identify efficient methods for collection of data that are necessary and sufficient for the purpose, as also the research methods for data analysis. So data analysis may have to serve different objectives. Exploring relations, confirming or refuting existing hypotheses, proposing explanations by way of hypotheses being developed in the research, predicting outcomes of current happenings or decisions, and some others. Next slide, please. Evaluation is the last phase, concerns evaluation of research results, and in terms of validity and generalizability. Next slide, please. All right, so the research proposal. This section summarizes my views on research proposal. So what is research proposal? In one sense, the answer is obvious. The proposal describes what the proposed research is about, what is trying to achieve and how it will go about doing this, and what we will learn from this and why it is worth learning. In another sense, the dividing line between the proposal and the research itself is not so obvious. The proposal describes what will be done, and the research itself is carried out after approval of the proposal. But preparing the proposal itself may also involve considerable research. Now, on choosing a research topic, those are parts of the research proposal. First off is to choose a research topic. And then writing the parts of a research proposal, of course, we have chapter 1, which is the introduction or the problem formulation. So there are many ways a topic can be introduced. And all topics have a background and a context. So these need to be dealt with the introduction, which sets the stage for the research. A strong introduction is important to a convincing proposal. Its purpose is not to review the literature, but rather to show generally how the proposed study fits into what is already known, and to locate it in relation to present knowledge and practice. So in the process of doing this, there should be a clear identification of the research area and topic, and a general statement of purpose. Now on chapter 2, which is review of related literature, and then we have chapter 3 on methodology. Next slide, please. All right, on choosing a research topic, the most basic questions are useful in guiding development of the proposal. So we have to consider the questions like what is the purpose of this research? How will this proposed research answer these questions? And why? Why is this research worth doing or funding? Or what will we learn? And why is it worth knowing? So here, on these guidelines, we need to consider, is it worth doing? Is it feasible in terms of our time, in terms of our money or our resources, in terms of personnel or manpower, in terms of accessibility to data, in terms of researchers' area of competence? So those are the things we need to look into. Another, are the factors involved measurable? Next slide, please. All right. So when choice is made, we need to narrow it down to a manageable scope. And then when done, we need to engage in an intensive review of related literature. Next slide, please. All right. So we have the elements of problem formulation. On first off, we need to elements of problem formulation includes writing the background of the study, and then writing the statement of the problem, and then choosing the theoretical framework, devising the conceptual model, formulating the hypothesis, stating the significance of the study, scope and limitations, writing the definition of terms. Next slide, please. All right. Now, how do we write the background of the study? First off, we need to start with an opening statement on general relevance of the topic, and then discuss in a nutshell the overall state of research on the topic, point some gaps, and then zero in on the reasons or justifications why you focus on the topic. Present hard facts on the problem at hand, then make a concluding statement of your justification, followed by a declaration of your intent to conduct studies specifying your unit of analysis and area of focus. Next slide, please. All right. Now, on writing the statement of the problem, the question on how. So, we need first we need to state the main or general problem by clearly stating the main variables of your studies in a declarative form. Another, we need to state your specific problems in measurable terms in an interrogative form. Next slide, please. All right. Now, how to state specific problems? First off, we need to be as specific as possible. Use variables in stating specific problems to facilitate measurements. If variables are complex, we need to use specific indicators of these variables. State nature of influence between and among variables. What is to be affected by what? And then state questions that are ethically neutral. Next slide, please. All right. On choosing the theoretical framework. A theory or a set of assumptions that you can use to provide temporary explanations to your research questions. So it can be obtained through your review of related literature. It helps identify the concepts or variables of your study, and it sets to integrate or connect the various concepts or variables. Next slide, please. All right. On devising the conceptual model. So it is the schematic diagram showing the interrelationships of variables of your study. It specifies the nature or categories of variables, for example, the dependent variables, the independent variables, the intervening variables, and etc. It may contain the indicators of each variable. It serves as the final guide in looking at or checking on the specific research problems. Next slide, please. All right. On formulating hypothesis, formulating the hypothesis. A hypothesis is a tentative statement of what will occur and which will be subjected to validation. We need to state your hypothesis using the null form, and then must be based upon the research questions or problems. Specific problems that explore on associations or relationships or differences between and among variables that need hypothesis. Next slide, please. Okay, on stating the significance of the study. So it refers to the contributions of your proposed study. How does it connect to the building of a theory or a paradigm? Could the results be used as a basis of enhancing weak areas in the operation of certain organizations? What benefits the results could bring to the stakeholders of your proposed study? So the particular topic and its context will determine the study's significance. Other terms for this might be justification, importance, or contribution of the study. So they all address the overarching question, why is this study worth doing? There are three general areas for the significance and contribution of the study: to knowledge in the area, to policy considerations, and to practitioners. The first of this, contribution to knowledge, is closely tied to the literature in the area. one function of the literature review is to indicate gaps in the knowledge area and to show how this study will contribute to filling those gaps. So this study will contribute to filling those gaps. So this has to be set against the position taken on the literature. All right, next slide, please. On writing the definition of terms. All right. So some disciplines like public administration require two types of definition: the conceptual definition, or CD, and the operational definition, or OD, for each term used. First concern here, however, is what are the terms to be defined? Look at your title first, and then the statement of the problem and conceptual model. The concepts there are to be defined conceptually and operationally. Next slide, please. Okay, so look for the conceptual definition of each term in books, dictionary, and other sources. Be sure to document them properly by using parenthetical notations. Writing the operational definition of term needs you to be focused and creative. Think of the way the term is to be used in your study. This requires you to think of ways to make the quantity or quality of the concept vary or convert it into a variable so it can be measured. Next slide, please. All right. Thus, writing the operational definition of a term may involve indicating the activities or procedures undertaken to measure a variable, especially if it is to be scored. Simply put, operational definition includes ways by which a given variable is measured. Next slide, please. On review of related literature, particularly on chapter 2. So this contains what previous investigations related to your topic have proven and how your research fits in the body of works on the subject matter. It has two parts: the related literature and the related studies. Next slide, please. Okay, so related literature, this includes all literature whose major concepts and assumptions are similar to your subject matter. It contains theories and generalizations related or applicable to your proposed study, must be arranged into topics, subheadings, or topic titles. These observe proper documentation within the text, use parenthetical notation, of course, PPA format in your references. Next slide, please. And then on related studies, of course, this contains major findings of actual studies related to your proposed study. These integrate major findings of these studies instead of presenting them one at a time. We need to avoid the copy and paste approach of presentation. It may be divided also into local studies and foreign studies. Next slide, please. On methodology. So first off is describing the research design, describing the local of the study, defining the population of the study, deriving the sample size, determining the sampling technique, choosing the data collection methods, deciding on methods of data. All right. On methodology, describing the research. The next slide, please. All right, on defining the population of the study. We need to determine the total number of elements about which you hope to make generalizations. If listed, it is called the sampling frame. Too large to be focus of your study, thus you need to get the sample from the population or the sampling frame. A sample is a selected subset of elements from the population who directly the key variables of your study. Next slide, please. All right. On deriving sample size from a population, this is done when you assume that your population is known and that it is too large to be the source of information. How it is derived from the population through use of various techniques such as Sloven's formula or table of sample size. So once you obtain the sample size, there is need to know what or who will compose it, which can be done through the sampling techniques. Now, why do we need a sample? One is, of course, the reduction of research cost. Second, greater speed. Third,
I think there's some technical glitches. We'll just wait for her to come back.
Very good evening, Esther ma'am. Ivy ma'am is trying to join again. She has lost her connection.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, she has joined.
yeah, she's coming. Thanks. Welcome again.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my connection.
It's
Next
all right.
slide, please. Yeah. All right. So next slide, please. All right. So on determining the sampling techniques, to determine who will be included in your sample, you need to consider two types of sampling techniques, the probability sampling and the non-probability sampling. Next slide, please. All right. On probability sampling, it is used when elements are to be randomly selected from a population to constitute the sample of your study. Information obtained from this kind of sample allows drawing of a generalization which can be applied to the population. So there are characteristics of probability sampling. One is the set of distinct samples can be defined. Second, the population unit has known probably of being included in the sample. Third, the selection is done through random selection. And then the techniques you may choose from are simple: random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, and cluster sampling. Next slide, please. On non-probability sampling, this is used when the principle of probability is difficult or it is difficult to estimate the population. So when a population is fluid or transient. So it entails the identification of respondents, based on criteria spelled out by the researcher. This is used in exploratory qualitative research. Types of non-probability sampling includes quota sampling. These are the main consideration here is directing quota sampling is the researcher's case of access to the sample population. We also have what we call the convenience sampling. So this takes sample from a group which is accessible but unrepresentative cases. For example, these are ones who intends to study attitudes of women towards polygamy, may use women as their respondents. And third, judgment or what we call the purposive sampling. Purposive, yeah. The primary consideration in purposive sampling is your judgment as to who can provide the best information to achieve the objectives of your study. So you as a researcher only go to those people who, in your opinion, are likely to have the required information and be willing to share it with you. All right. Now we also have what we call the snowball or referral sampling. Snowball sampling is the process of selecting a sample using networks. To start with, a few individuals in a group or organization are selected and the required information is collected from them. So they are then asked to identify other people in the group or organization, and the people selected by them become a part of the sample. All right, next slide, please. Okay, then we also have combined probability and non-probability sampling. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, on data collection techniques. Your choice must be appropriate to generate accurate and quality information that would answer the research questions. Now, there are two types. We have the primary techniques and secondary techniques. These are sources of our data. The primary research, which collects information from observation or interview or questionnaire to informants or respondents. And then we have the secondary techniques or the secondary research. These are from bibliography or content investigation. These are collection and analysis of data from printed sources or unobtrusive research. Your choice must be guided by your research design and the nature of your research problems. Next slide, please. On primary data collection techniques, to be used when research questions need to be answered with primary or first-hand data. These allow direct interaction by the researcher with respondents, and techniques are as follows: direct observation, interview, guide questionnaire or focus group discussions, and indirect method. Next slide, please. Okay. On secondary data collection techniques, to be used when research questions need secondary data or information already collected by other individuals or institutions. Secondary data may be contained in documents like statistical records, personal records, and narrative documents. Researcher has to establish rapport with the gatekeepers of the information, that is to gain access to documents needed. Next slide, please. All right, next slide, please. Okay, on deciding on methods of data analysis, frequency, please, please go back to the first slide.
Previous slide.
On deciding methods on data analysis.
Previous slide. Yes, before this.
Previous slide, please. Okay.
Thank you.
Previous slide. Yeah, okay. So on deciding on methods of data analysis, first off, we need to focus on the frequency and percentage distribution, which is either in tabular form or graphical presentation. And then the descriptive statistics, which is through mean, and inferential statistics through correlational statistics, either parametric tests and non-parametric tests. Next slide, please. We're almost done. Please bear with me. All right. On correlational statistics, these are used in hypothesis testing. Parametric tests such as Pearson's R, t-test for single sample mean, t-test for two sample means, and ANOVA are used when sample is randomly selected and data are measured by at least an interval scale or ratio according to Seigel and Castellian in 1988. Next slide, please. All right. So non-parametric tests such as Spearman's rank, order correlation, chi-square, Kramer's V, lambda, gamma, and Summers D are used when sample is very small and when obtained through a non-probabilistic sampling technique and when data are ordinal or nominal according to Seigel and Castellian 1988 and Abdul Rahman 2005. That ends my presentation. Thank you very much. And maybe you have some questions.
Yes. Okay, the floor is open for questions as Dr. Professor Ivy Shara requested for questions. Is there any questions before I sum up her presentation? Okay, while waiting for questions, I shall sum up. Professor Ivy Shara May, impressive, inspiring,
Thank you very
detailed
much.
explanation and excellent presentation. In spite of technical glitches, you struggled through and you managed to deliver it very well, Professor Ivy. Okay, today you have just touched on all this topic. I'll summarize what is research. You define and you gave quotes of Mukherjee, then objectives of research, broad steps in research, covering concrete formulation of research problem, review of relevant literature, formulation of expected outcome, research design, collection of evidences, analysis of evidences. Next, you did share about phases, which covers phases of research, which covers conceptual, philosophical, implementation, and evaluation. Next, the research proposal, choosing how to choose a research topic, and elements of problem formulation, writing the background of studies, how to state specific problems, choosing the theoretical framework, devising the conceptual model, formulating the hypothesis, stating the significance of the studies, writing the definition of terms, which is actually operational definition, review of related literature, related studies, methodology, defining the population of the study, deriving sample size from a population, determining the sampling techniques, which is probability sampling and cluster sampling. It covers probability sample, random sampling, simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random samplings, and cluster sampling. Non-probability sampling, accidental or convenient sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling, and snowball or referral sampling. Next, you shared about combined probability and non-probability. These are three probabilities. is how you determine the sampling techniques. Next, data collection, which is obviously primary and secondary data collection. Then finally, deciding on methods of analysis, data analysis. Thank you. Professor Ivy Sarah, we love to have you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much.
Next, we have our second presenter, Dr. Subra Gora. Are you here? Dr.
Yes.
Subra. Oh, yeah, amazing. Welcome, Dr. Subra. Dr.
Thank
Subra
you.
Gora. Okay, let me introduce you. Happy weekend to you. Dear audience, let's know about Dr. Subha Gora. Dr. Subha Gora is a gold medalist who is passionate about fields of development, teaching and research, which have also helped her to have a bigger picture on issues. She has around 8 years of experience in teaching undergraduate and postgraduate courses in English and literature, communicative English, soft skill, and training students for campus placements. Teaching students from different backgrounds and inclination has aided her in understanding the nuances of classroom teaching and skill of orientating her classes towards practical implications of English language and literature. Her volunteer work has given her an opening to meet people from different socio-economic, political, and cultural backgrounds from India and abroad, and learn from their experiences. It has also given her the opportunity to travel to few places which helped her understand the world better. She also holds a diploma in development leadership and other certifications from Coady International Institute, San Francisco Xavier University, Antigonish, Nova Scotia, Canada. She splits her free time among traveling, volunteering in NGOs, and her other hobbies. Fantastic introduction for you. Yeah, great to know you, Dr. Subha. Welcome. You may present your paper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Respected Chair,
Welcome.
admins, participants, I'm really delightful to be here and receive such warm introduction. It gives me immense pleasure to be part 5-day long research skill workshop, and we have our enthusiastic participants here to learn more. I really appreciate the organizers for your patience. I totally understand what it might have taken to bring so many experts from different parts of the world together on this platform. Without much further delay, I would like to proceed into my presentation. I'll quickly share my screen. I'm facing an issue with the sharing my screen. Can I email?
Maybe you can pass it to the admin to
Okay.
do to share for you, Doctor.
Okay.
Can you share in the chat box?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Admin, are you there?
Please.
Yeah, admin, she's standing
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
chat box.
I am here. Send me in the email.
Send in the email, the chat box, yeah.
Can you please give me your email? I can't see.
It's in the chat box, I think. Yeah, it's CIJO.
1 second, please.
Yeah, I will read for you. CI,
1 second, please.
Canada, India, Jack.
Can you give me a second? I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
To open my mail.
Take your time. Take your time. Relax.
I'm extremely sorry for that suddenly.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's a normal thing which happens. Relax. You know why? When something goes wrong, you obviously get panic. Yeah, that is normal.
Thank you. Yeah. Can you tell me the email ID?
Canada,
Okay.
India,
Hmm.
Jack,
Hmm.
Orlando,
Hmm.
Canada,
Hmm.
Holland,
Hmm.
Rwanda,
Hmm.
India,
Hmm.
Singapore,
Hmm.
Thailand,
Hmm.
Orlando,
Hmm.
Belgium,
Hmm.
England,
Hmm.
Rwanda. Then alphabet numeric 2831
831.
2831. Yeah.
Hmm.
So at gmail.com. Shall I? Can you read the alphabet, please, ma'am?
Yes. C I
Yeah.
J O C H R I S T O B E R
Yeah.
2831 at gmail.com.
Fantastic. You got it right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor Ivy, I think Dr. Magna came in to see you, to support you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr.
No,
Anissa. And of
yeah,
course,
she
Sir
left.
Vic-
Is she here still? Is she still here?
I cannot see her now, but I
Yeah,
saw her.
yeah. That's why I said she
Yeah.
came in to support you. After
Thank
she left.
you.
This is the spirit of you know, supporting each other. It's really nice of her. Are you from the same place or she's from a different?
No, no, we are far from each other,
Far
but
apart.
we are both. Yeah, we are both from Mindanao State University, but we are of a different campus.
Ah, okay.
Mm-mm.
And we lost Dr. Subha. We'll wait for her to come back. Admin, are
Yeah,
you ready with the presentation? Are you got the ready the email? Dear admin, I don't know the person's name. Sorry.
Yeah, ma'am, I have received just now.
Okay,
Within
great.
2 minutes, I will share.
Great, thank you. You just wait for her to come back and we can proceed. Yeah, welcome back, Dr. Subha Gora. Fantastic. Okay, so admin will share the screen now. Dear admin, you may
Can
proceed.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're audible. We'll
I have
ask.
sent my email.
Yeah. Can the admin play the share the screen, Dr. Subha?
Yeah, ma'am. Within
Yeah.
1 minute,
Okay.
we will share.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Doctor, you may proceed.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So the abstract is something we start with once we are done with our research writing, research paper. Why do we do it? If I may ask this question, I request our participants to unmute your mics, and if you have any cue of why we write abstract after writing our research project. May I have one or two audience? Okay. I think because of the weather issues, they might be having some technical glitches. I would continue. So basically, we write abstracts so that our research is visible for further inquiry. What the area that we have spent so much time in is, it does not have meaning when it doesn't go out there, to show the kind of outcomes that we have or conclusions that we have come in our own research, and also if it doesn't help future research, it would become meaningless. An abstract is the first document which gives this access for any inquisitive mind to see research that has been done in a particular area, and also aspiring researchers to explore the possibility of further research in any particular area. So these two aspects attached to it, it becomes one of the most important documents that we need to prepare. So this is the way I have structured my presentation. We would be looking into what an abstract is, and then we would be understanding the purpose. Then we would also be looking into what an abstract should not be, what it is not, and where do we begin it? How do we go about it when it's such an important document in our research? And then what are the requirements, the specific requirements that an abstract should fulfill? And then how would the information be how should the information be successfully structured for easy access and comprehensibility? Then we would be looking into the four major aspects of writing an abstract. And then we would be looking quickly into the writing process with an example. And then we would also be looking into what is it that we need to pay attention before finalizing and sending it across, and the common barriers, and a few writing tips specific to abstract writing. Next slide, please. So what is an abstract? Edwin, can you click further? So on the very set, one major aspect, the minute we say abstract, the minute we look at the term abstract, one very important aspect we need to keep in our mind is it is a very, very concise statement of our entire research. All the major elements of our research presented in a capsule for better comprehensibility, for feasibility. Okay, next, please. Next, what's the purpose? As we have just discussed, the purpose of an abstract would be to give an overview, to provide a context. It would give an overview of what the research is all about, the big picture, the aerial view. Why? The context. Why in the first place has this research been conducted? Why in the first place is it important? Why in the first place is it significant in to conduct this research? Then who is it used by? It's used by journals to assign reviewers, because not anyone and everyone would be able to assess and gauge the depth of the research, the effort that you have put into your research by looking at the abstract. So to assign reviewers, it would be very handy for the journals to even to say if the research is worth or not. And as we have already discussed, it acts for abstracting information for researchers to quickly see what's going on in your field in terms of research. Then it helps readers to decide whether they need to read it or the entire article or not, whether it would fulfill their purpose, whether it would satiate their interest or not. They need not spend time. Anything but time is something that is precious these days. So we are all, really pressed for time, and we are really conscious of our time, right? So one look at the abstract, a reader can decide whether he or she wants to go ahead with the article or not. Then it also provides reminders for the readers. We have a whole array of knowledge out there. So an abstract would crisply, but in entirety, I repeat, an abstract would crisply, but in entirety, give an excellent contribution or outcome to a particular of research to a particular area. Then it also directs readers' attention to the highlights of major elements of their article. Next slide, please. So what are the types of abstracts? When you write an abstract, first you need to know into which category you would like your abstract to fall. Once you decide that, half of your work is done, because the way you build or come up or create your abstract depends upon the kind of information that you want to highlight in your article. You can have multiple abstracts, no doubt about it, based upon where you want your article to appear, where you want your research to pop up in these search engines, because each research has specific aim, as we have seen in the past couple of days. So it is your abstract which gives that visibility to your research on a global platform. So the first type of abstract is a critical abstract. What does it do? Apart from describing the main findings and information, a judgment or a comment or about the validity or completeness, it evaluates the paper and often compares it to other work on the same subject. So the critical abstract generally is a little longer. This is the only kind of abstract that is a little longer than the other abstracts. Please, I repeat, to just get you into the mold that abstracts are very, very crisp, very short, to the point, but all inclusive. They include all the aspects of research that you have done, right? So it's only the critical abstract that can go to up to 400 to 500 words in length, because it needs a lot of additional interpretative commentary. So, and these kind of abstracts are very infrequently used, but for you to just be aware. Next, we have the descriptive abstract. So when do we use it? It doesn't make any judgment like the critical abstract about the work, nor does it provide results or conclusions of any research. What it does is it incorporates keywords found in conclusions of research, the keywords that are there in the text, and may include the purpose or the methods or scope of research. Essentially, basically, it only describes the work being summarized. So as some researchers consider it to be an outline, we can rather say that the descriptive abstracts are usually very short, hardly 100 words, because they just summarize the research work. Next slide, please. The next kind of abstract is informative abstract. So what do? These as well, they do not critique or evaluate a work, but then they do a little more than just summarizing or describing. Unlike the descriptive abstract, it becomes like kind of surrogate to the work itself. So the researcher, while writing a descriptive abstract, presents and explains all the main arguments and the important results, evidences in the paper, and it also includes the information that can be found like in descriptive abstract, like methods, purposes, scope. But we need to remember that it also includes results and conclusions, the recommendations of the author. So when compared to the descriptive abstract, the length is slightly varies. It can go up to 300 words in general. Then highlight abstract. It is specifically written to attract the reader's attention to a particular study. No pretense made there. No pretense of being balanced or complete picture, but it cannot stand independent. It just highlights the major aspects of its associated article. So this is just for you to know that there is a kind of abstract that just associates with an article, but does not exactly give you the information in the article. So because of its function, it's very, very rarely used in academics. Next slide, please. So what is it not? This is something we need to know carefully, because many a times people tend to forget that this is, they read abstracts and they fail to go to the articles, which should be avoided at any cost. So we should always remember that an abstract is not a substitute for article. It is only a guideline for you to know whether the particular article would fulfill your purpose or not, whether the particular article would give you enough information about what you're looking for. But it's not the entire information. It's not independent by itself. So it is not a substitute for the article. If you want to go deep, don't just read the abstract and say, this is wonderful research. Go to the article, read it. It's not the summary of the entire article. It will only tell you what's there in the article. As we proceed in our presentation, we would be looking into the way the abstract is structured, but that does not mean that it is the summary of the entire article. Even the descriptive abstract, even though it gives you the summary of, even though it summarizes the articles, it is not the entirety. So reading the article is mandatory if you are if you want to be a good researcher. It does not contain enough information for critical evaluation of research, and it is not fully peer reviewed. Next slide, please. Another aspect I want all my young friends here to remember is to be very clear about the difference between an abstract and an introduction. These both are often confused areas in research. An abstract talks about novelty of research. It talks about the contribution that a particular research makes to a field of study. Whereas an introduction prepares you to acquire that knowledge that is there in the article. It talks about the area of research. It talks about the research conducted. We have in the literature review. It talks about the methodology used, and it talks about the findings. So it kind of prepares you. Whereas abstract specifically talks about novelty and the contribution to the field. Next slide, please. So where do we begin? We need to keep in mind first the deadline, then the brevity. Brevity is everything in abstract. So you need to plan well how you would be presenting and what you would be presenting in. Then the audience, based upon your audience, you need to change or use certain vocabulary, and then based upon the message that you want to convey. For that, again, determining the purpose of the abstract becomes very, very important. Based on the purpose, based on the audience, we need to get back, and we can, that can be our starting point to start writing an abstract. Next slide, please. So what are the requirements? Usually when we say abstract, it's usually somewhere between 200 and 350 words, unless specifically mentioned by the journal. Then it should definitely contain these three aspects. One, the title, which is catchy. At the same time, which catchy doesn't mean using fancy words. It means it highlights the research article. It talks about why this particular research article is important. Then the authors, the researchers, of course, who had worked so hard in bringing out this research document, and then the kind of contribution, whether it's an empirical study or whatever. So these three things become mandatory when you talk about requirements. Next slide, please. So creating the title, we have already discussed. It has to reflect for sure what the research is about. Then the abstract also should talk about the aim of your research, as what is it that you wanted to say through your article. Then what is the kind of method that you wanted to use in your article or research. And then what are the current findings that you have come up with after your research, and also the expected contribution. How your contribution would, because you would be doing the literature review, you will already be aware of the gap in research. You are expected to say what is it that your research is going to add to the field of in the field to existing knowledge. That becomes extremely important. At the same time, as we do this, I want to reiterate so that it stays in your mind whenever, the minute we say abstract, the first thing we need to remember is brevity. It should be crisp, but at the same time, it should contain all these aspects. Next slide, please. So this is the basic structure of any abstract. First, the title, and then you introduce your authors, because we need to know the credibility of the researchers as well. And then in the introduction, you talk about why. Why do you think this research is important? Why do you think this study becomes necessary? That comes from our gap analysis. And then how? What are the materials used? What are the methods used? How did you go about your research? What was your criteria? If it is empirical, then you would be using several tools. So all that you would not list them or you would not mention them, but you would tell them how you have gone about. Abstract, that's all those comes in your paper, not in your abstract. You are never to describe all that in your abstract. You will just say, this is how I went about. This is the method I have used, and these are the materials that I looked into. Then you would also state the result. What? What is it that you have found after your research? And then discussion. So what? So this is what I have found. So what now? Where do we go from here? So what does this tell us? So what does it mean? So these are the aspects you would be discussing. If you look at these aspects, if you look at the structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 aspects, and then brevity. So it's not that you would be writing about any of these aspects more than 1 or 2 sentences. That's where the challenge comes. That's where you need to prove yourself as a good researcher only when you have a thorough understanding of what you want to talk, what your audience are, and what is it that you're saying. What is your objective? You will be able to do this better. That's the major challenge. When we are asked to write something elaborate, it's much easier. The challenge comes with brevity. So, dear friends, I would like you to keep these aspects. These would be the guidelines. These would be the blueprint for you to look into before you start drafting your abstract. Next, please. So, the abstract structure: why, how, what, so what. One more click, please. So the first thing you need to determine the reason behind the research being done. Why are we doing this research? Then once you determine the reason for the research, you proceed to, okay, fine. If this is why I'm going to do this research, what would be my basic approach? What would be my methodology? What are the theories that I would be looking into for me to go about this approach? Usually all this, you bring it, you put it forward in 1 or 2 sentences, all these aspects. Then from there, after you determine that, you would go ahead and you would talk about main findings. Main findings, what I would say, the reason behind your research being done, and then the basic approach or methodology, put them in just 1 sentence. So you have 2 sentences there. And then the main findings can take 2 sentences. You can afford to have another 2 sentences for main findings. Then conclusion should again usually come to 1 sentence. So the conclusion, because you need to give the broader implications as well, it can come to 1 sentence. But then if you include all this, let's say it would definitely reach around 200 to 250 words. And if you remember, 200 to 350 is our limit. Usually the minute we say abstract, it's not more than that. So that's how you need to plan. Next slide, please. So what do we do? Once we determine all this, now we have the what, when, how, and the conclusion. We draft the first draft. We have the first draft. First, we put in thoughts, pen down all our thoughts, and then we start editing, revising, editing, revising, editing, revising, till we get down to 200 to 350 words. So for the first thing, once you draft, the next step for editing and revising, you need to cross-check the guidelines. Go back to the guidelines, cross-check them, and determine what the number, and check the number of words they're asking you to put your abstract in. And then you start revising. Next slide, please. So this is the overall structure. I have given a small example here. If you look at the first part of the abstract, it's a general statement. They kind of told us why a particular research has been conducted. Like they prepared the ground for it. And then if the next sentence here, it describes a problem. It states a problem. It takes a deeper and clearly, crisply, it makes it very clear what exactly the problem is. Next, what did we propose? We propose, that's the term. So what is it that they tried to do in their research? Trying to solve the problem. They have they have introduced us to the background. Then they stated the problem. Then look at the choice of words. That is where brevity comes in. That is where clarity comes in. We propose. So now it is obvious. Those two words tell us that it is obvious that they're trying to solve the problem. And then they have given the solution. And then they have given the general, this paper describes, they have given the general statement, kind of conclusion. So in 4 lines, if you observe the structure as well, they have not used jargon, heavy jargon, maybe because of the research area that they are working. Yes, they had to use technical terms, but not much of a jargon. At the same time, they have made the sentences clear and to the point. Next, please. Next slide. So to achieve this success in abstract, these are the 4 main aspects you need to keep in mind. They are mandatory, inevitable. If you want your abstract to be to the point and effective. Effectiveness comes only when you follow these forces. So what are they? Complete. When you write, because it's only a couple of sentences, abstract is all about brevity, and it's only, imagine you giving an introduction in 1 sentence. You giving your problem statement in 1 sentence. Research findings of the entire term being put forth only in 2 sentences and concluding in 1 sentence. Completeness of thought, completing the idea, that becomes extremely important. As we have been repeatedly reminding ourselves, concise and crisp, brevity. At the same time, you need not use complex compound sentences. No. Clarity, in many instances, in major cases, would be achieved through clear, simple sentences. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use complex sentences. If need arises, yes. If it arises, yes. But simple sentences with technical vocabulary, wherever it is mandatory, would give completeness as well as clarity. Cohesive. Each thought that you express, be it in your introduction, be it in your problem statement, be it in your findings, be it in your conclusion, they should all relate to each other. They should all be cohesive. They should all be like a single structure. They should all be comprehensible. They should be a rational linking one sentence to another. So cohesiveness. Once you practice implementing these 4 C's in your abstract writing, your abstract is going to reach out to the right audience. And once your abstract reaches out to the audience, your visibility as a researcher increases. Once your visibility as a researcher increases, your scope of collaborations, your scope of further research increases. So that is how important it is to be able to achieve these 4 C's in your abstract. Next slide, please. So the writing process, first draft, you write, you edit in a free flow, you cut paste, 1 thought, 1 sentence, you start putting 1 thought in 1 sentence and go ahead. Then always remember Please edit abbreviations. Please edit numbers. Please use plurals to eliminate articles. Use adjectival clauses for better comprehensibility and clarity. Next, please. So the draft that we have just seen in our example, when edited, when revisited, it comes down to this 200 words. So it's all about having it together and then start re-editing. Next slide, please. So before you finalize, before you say, okay, fine, I'm done, I'm going to send the abstract, go back to the instructions. Any publisher would definitely give you guidelines, the kind of style sheet that you need to follow for sending in your article, the word limit for your articles. So please follow all the instructions to the T. We need to follow the instructions given. Then include headings exactly as stated, exactly as you want it, as you want your research to be reflected. Because in the search engines, that is where you grab the attention of people interested in your research. So include headings exactly. Use short, clear sentences. So it's one idea per sentence. That's our thumb rule. And then limit your abstract to the word. Every word is precious in an abstract. So carefully gauge the kind of words that you want to use in your word. So word count and character count requirement on par with effectiveness comes with your ability to choose each word in your abstract because of its brevity. You can't afford to explain anything further. So choose each word. Align your character count and word count with your requirement. Both should sync. Then, if possible, get help from a mentor, a senior researcher, or your any peer researcher. Because what happens, and you can, another way of doing it is when you do collaborative work, don't ask your co-collaborator. Go in for a person outside your team. Then make revisions based upon a feedback. Another thing I would like to suggest is I usually say, that's the reason I told deadline. Plan well in advance, write your abstract, finalize your abstract well in advance, sleep over. Leave it for 1 or 2 days, go back to it, you'll get fresh perspective. So that's also a good technique that you can use to fine tune your abstract or your article as well. Yeah, because a tired mind sometimes cannot throw a fresh perspective on to an issue. So leave it for a day or two, get back to it. You yourself would be able to give it a new perspective. Next slide, please. So a few writing tips from my end. Please follow the exact structure and please avoid using jargons and always follow the word limit and provide a statement of what the paper found rather than just saying that it will explore. Then follow the specific formatting instructions given. And then most important aspect not to be forgotten is keywords. Please include keywords from your full paper. The major aspects that you have researched into, please do not forget to include them in your keywords. Another example or tip I would be giving you is to read other aspects in your specific area. Then you would have a perspective of how others are going about it, because everyone uses, they have their own unique style at looking and presenting a research problem. So I would always advise you to read other abstracts in your area. Then please do not include your, too much of other data. That could be done in your, or referencing. Few people have a habit of giving reference in the abstract. It's a big no. You can, yes, you should acknowledge where you have got your sources from, but you should do that in your literature review and your references. That is where you should not miss, but not in your abstract. So please do not do that. And then please do not define the terms in your abstract. Many people have a habit, they want to explain everything in their abstract in itself. So please refrain from doing that. You can define terms in your article, not in your abstract. And another major block in writing is using fill-in words. People, because of the challenge that we have, and usually it's not that everyone has a flair for language or writing. They use a lot of fill-in words. Please refrain from using that. Refrain from using heavy jargon as well. So these are a few tips that I have come up with. So thank you all. I really appreciate your patience, that too on a weekend after a long workshop. So the simple tip I would give, work on it, finish it, publish it. All the best.